I thought I was supposed to call you.
Well, you were, but I figured I was running like 3 minutes late, so I figured you may have already tried.
I did, and I actually was dozing off.
You about ready to take your middle of the day nap, and then you'll stay up till 2 o'clock or something?
That's already done.
Already done?
Yeah, and I'm sipping on butter coffee.
Oh, jeez.
I know it's late. It's too late in the day to be drinking coffee, but you know how they say go into your pain and try not to resist it. Don't resist it. So like I'm trying all these things so I can get better sleep at night, and trying to like get all, worked up about it and all that other stuff. So I'm just like, you know what? I'm not even going to fight it anymore. I'm just going to drink caffeine before bed.
Wow.
See if that helps.
Man, you were really flipping the shark with that one.
I know. I'll let you know how that goes. It'll be in my upcoming book, 6 Weeks to Ironman 70.3 Chattanooga.
That is awesome. You sound so much clearer. I think it might be because we're only like 10 or 12 miles away from each other right now.
I know. You could be in the other room for all I know. You got a key still, don't you?
I never had a key.
Oh, you didn't?
No.
Get you a key to the Crushing Iron Studios.
Seriously.
How about it?
I would like one. So, topic for today. What'd you decide on?
I decided that we're going to go to mental toughness.
Good. Because that link you sent me, I don't really want a part of.
Wait a minute. 11 ways to get to Kona?
Yeah, I mean, one of them's legit, and the other one are what make it not so much a world championship anymore.
Well,
so,
Ironman sent out, and a lot of you probably got it, but it was a part of an email that says 11 ways to get to Kona, and one of them was the legitimate way about qualifying in a race, that traditionally most people do, and the 10 other ones were all based around giving them more money. It's basically paying your way up and beyond.
Yeah.
The cause of duty just to get
which is normal for if you want to call something a world championship, which is just like anyway, well maybe a bonus cast for another day, but I don't feel like ripping on it today.
No, we're gonna rip on it. But do you get a sense? Oh well, we could for just a little bit here. Could you get a sense that I mean, we knew Ironman was flipping the shark a long time ago in a lot of ways, but I just get the sense that they're really kind of pushing the envelope on this commercialism in the last couple of years, maybe since they sold. I don't know.
Listen, when you decide, I mean, I know it's a business, you're supposed to grow it, but with that comes you're devaluing what you want to call an actual world championship. Mm-hmm. I think this is the only actual quote-unquote world championship where you can purchase an entry on eBay or through donating, or just to, and this is, I know this is going to really hurt our market in Asia, but the fact that they're giving away 20 qualifying slots at Ironman Canada only for eligible Japanese nationals.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Come on, dude. That's like a little bit of a reach to me. Not even a little bit. It's a huge reach. I understand it from the Wanda, like the group that bought WTC, the Wanda group or whatever, who owns huge corporations like AMC and other ones, that they're trying to expand the market within their own territory in Asia because it's not as big. But it's, in the other ways, like on eBay and the Legacy and the Executive Challenge and the bonus slots at different races, it's like anytime you go to these drastic measures, what I actually hear from a business standpoint is, we might be struggling.
Yeah.
And I don't see it from like they're struggling because they're not making money, but when you're kind of cannibalizing your other races, which is what they're doing, and you're offering Kona slots for like just entering, being the lucky winner of an entry to Kona if you register for Ironman Boulder within this state and this state. Like, to me, that just screams being desperate. Yeah. And so it doesn't look good to me.
When I first got into this business, and it was kind of rare that I would run across a Kona qualifier. And when I did, I was like, I was kind of like, I was impressed, I'm not going to lie. And it seems as though nowadays I run into a lot of them, and I don't know, it's they're not really kind of qualifying, you know what I mean? So either through the slots, all these different types of slots and things like that, and it seems like it's only getting worse. But I just, I meant in general, that Ironman is, there's just goofy T-shirts and all, it's just a big commercial play on every level. It seems as though, and they're not selling out these races, and they're pulling out all the, gimmicks. It seems like, rather than trying to make these events more pleasurable and more interesting and keep athletes engaged in the real reason that they're doing them, rather than giving trinkets and building this whole I don't know, circus around everything.
Hey, we live in a world of participation trophies, so we're going that route. I don't want to go into any further, so let's talk about mental toughness.
Okay, so if it's all right with you, man, I just found an article, and it actually was on triathlete.com, and
oh boy.
But here's what I thought we'd do.
Okay.
Since we're both going in blind. I mean, literally, I just found it, probably 2 minutes before you called.
Sweet. Okay.
What I did was it said 9 ways to mental toughness or something. I'll link to the article because we own that much. But I just copied out the headlines and, like the 9 bullet points on each one. And I just thought we'd riff on these and talk about these because, it was sort of related to triathlon instead of mental toughness in general, and I just thought we might talk about it. And if it's going,
go for it.
If the shark is flipping as we start going through this, we can shift gears and talk about your move to Nashville and how it feels being on Nashville soil again.
Sounds good, man. Let it rip. I'm going in blind.
All right. So, number 1 way to mental toughness is make the commitment. What does that mean to you, Robbie?
Make the commitment?
Yeah.
Wow.
You got to make the commitment.
I'm pretty sure that's easier said than done. I mean, I think we all make the commitment, but I think it ultimately, mental toughness only comes down to practice. And I think you have to fail a multitude of times before you can actually be able to know what it takes to succeed through it. So I don't necessarily agree with that. Maybe it's just a way that I'm framing it in my mind.
Yeah.
Because I think you can commit to persevere. I think is a maybe a better way, to put it. But I mean, I think you should always go a little bit longer than you want to, up to a point, unless it's like sacrificing possible injury or whatever. But be comfortable getting uncomfortable. And I think anytime you're talking about any kind of mental toughness, I actually just think it comes more so with time and age and wisdom and experience necessarily versus making the commitment. But you can definitely make the commitment to put yourself in adverse, difficult situations in training. But then again, in the back of your mind, it's training. It's like, in my opinion, it's like setting your clock 10 minutes ahead. It's utterly pointless. It is utterly pointless. Oh. Because unless you have like some kind of like memory loss, you're going to look at your clock and say, oh man, wait a minute, it's 10 minutes past. I got time. Yeah. So it literally doesn't work. So that's kind of how I feel about that.
Yeah, and I took a quick glance at this because I couldn't really figure out what was going on there either. But they're talking about setting a goal. That was really the commitment,
A goal for mental toughness, just a goal in general.
Making a goal, yeah, to I guess commit to a race or something. So I guess in a way, I could see that would be maybe that is just phase 1. Make the commitment. It's like decide you're going to do it, right? Okay. So you kind of got into what I think they were getting at with number 2, which was build confidence with difficult workouts.
Yeah, totally agree with that. I mean, putting yourself in uncomfortable situations and not from like maybe a speed or a pace or a power standpoint, but because that's sometimes not safe. Mm-hmm. But I always like to pressure people on like a duration, at like an easy duration, whether it's riding, swimming, or it's really easy to do safely riding and swimming because you're almost little to no risk of injury. And I've done it before. I think if Rebecca Appleton, if you're listening on your long drive to Smyrna in the mornings for work, I think it was like December. I threw in like almost a 3-mile swim, pool swim, like out of nowhere.
Oh.
In her training plan. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, I thought you said hello. And she was like, "Is this correct?" And I was like, "Yeah, it's correct." And then she knocked it out of the park, which was like twice the longest swim she's ever done. And I was like, "See, and Ironman, Mont Tremblant's like over 8 months away. Doesn't it make you feel good to know you've already kind of done this? And you're doing it in a safer environment with little to no risk in training versus in a race." But that's why it's always safe to go for more duration and distance than it is in swimming. I wouldn't do like, "Hey, Mike, go for a 30-mile run," because that's just idiotic. But it's similar to what I did to you that day on the trace when you thought you were going for a 60-mile ride and you saw me and I said, "All right, man, hop on. We're going for another one." And you ended up doing almost 120. And it's those kind of things, like your abilities, but you don't know if you're going to be able to do it. So you're kind of getting over that fear of the unknown, but doing it in kind of a safe atmosphere that training really is, where even if you do fail, what should I say, the penalty isn't as great as it would be in a race.
Okay. How do you know when to lay that on her, like, for example, or me?
Or when I laid it on you? Or
yeah. I mean, how do you know that they're ready? Or is that just a gut instinct? Or
it's honestly, it has little to do with training and everything to do with where they are mentally. Okay. If they're having a rough week and work is stressful, the last thing I'm gonna do is insert some epic workout. It's like, which are ridiculous anyway. Mm-hmm. It's more so, are you in a good groove, and are you being consistent? Because then I know you're being fit. And obviously, I look at the numbers. I'm not going to make some like idiotic jump, but I think it's important to plug in, like, letting people know where their ceiling might be. Because and usually it's dependent on the athlete. Because a lot of athletes I have a ton of confidence, and it's my job to rein them in. And then a lot of them need confidence and need to have that belief within themselves that they are an athlete, that they can do this. And that I feel like at that certain point, she needed that. And especially for swimming, like a lot of people struggle with swimming. I think it's important to show people that they can really do anything. You just don't know until you actually kind of jump in.
Right, that's good. Should we at some point work in that email we just got today from Chris?
Now's a great time. Go for it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that
scratch my back.
Yeah, me? Yeah.
Yeah, scratch my back.
Okay. Great job on that, by the way.
Thank you.
He had emails. He listened to a previous podcast, and he was talking about how we often discuss this concept of don't PR your workouts. And he said that he was, kind of relatively new to triathlon, and what was happening is that most of his workouts, he was just PRing them, and it was just sort of happening. And obviously that makes sense in a way, because I went through the same phase where you're just getting going, and everything you do is kind of a new milestone for you. But we didn't, like you described it really well. Do you want me to put what you said here?
Yeah, if you would. Yeah, it was nice, short and sweet.
Yeah, it was. You basically said, I'm going to keep it short and sweet. There's a big difference in A, PRing a workout naturally due to an increase in training or positive stimulus, and B, beginning a workout with the ultimate goal of going faster than before with no regard for other outside contributing factors. The first one is good, the second one is bad. So in regard to, building confidence with difficult workouts, for me, that happens kind of naturally sometimes if I'm feeling good. And it doesn't mean that I'm going to go out and, like you said, run 30 miles, but I'm going to certainly push certain things. And it definitely helps me out. Why don't you talk about him a little bit, though?
I think about the guy who emailed. Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, there is a huge difference. So that's where I tried to kind of simplify it. If you do any kind, training is a lot like diet.
Okay, this is going to go into number 3. So let's just transition right here.
Okay.
It says know the purpose of each workout.
Yeah. So for this, anytime you change a stimulus or a training volume or a distribution, you're more than likely going to see some kind of a benefit or change. That's just how your body. That's how your body works when you get something that doesn't seem for it. It adapts drastically and almost overcompensates for this new thing you're kind of inputting in your life. And like I just said a minute ago, a diet is the same way. Like if you start off in like some like crazy diet, you're gonna lose weight the first couple of days because your body's like, what the hell's going on? Mm-hmm. And then that's why you plateau after a couple of days. Training is the same way. So if you've been doing, this same type of training where there's a certain type of high intensity or low volume distribution or whatever it is, and then you change it, you're going to see benefits and you're going to get faster because you're getting fitter. And that's the purpose, is to get fitter, not try to be faster. And that's probably the simplest way I can put it for every workout is if you're doing things correctly and you're taking it kind of slow and steady, you're going to get faster. And in some weeks you may PR everything. Weather and temp and life stress, outstanding. That's going to happen. Versus the mentality of I didn't get a lot of sleep. Running on little to no hydration today, a cup of coffee, and work is stressful, but I gotta PR this workout. That's when you start to do damage, because it's not good for you. I think that was kind of the gist of what our emailer was trying to get across.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I go a lot, I have to admit. It's sort of like that thing where you maybe aren't feeling it, and you're kind of like mentally out of the loop, and you sort of go out there with this intention of proving that you're still like in the ballpark for that race goal that we talk about, and you got to go show yourself that you can do something. And that's that false confidence that I think that happens a lot, and I do that very often. And that's why it's actually been really good for me to be a part of these podcasts, because we've been talking about this a lot, where reining yourself in more often than not, because that is the long-term goal, is the one you're shooting for, and it's not to go out and nail a workout today. Even though you can nail it, but you don't have to to set a PR on it. I talked to him, or I emailed him back, and I said, the goal is to find little gains here and there, and also focus on the recovery. And recovery gets really hard if you start going out to PR your workouts all the time. It's like trying to recover after a race. It's just it's just not the way to do it. You want short, easier recoveries. That's the key to keep building your muscles.
Yeah, I mean, you're better off having 14 consecutive, somewhat boring days than 3 breakthrough workouts, quote unquote, and more days off within that 14-day span.
Yeah, that's why I ultimately didn't run the Nashville Half Marathon last weekend, was that I knew that would probably throw me in a pickle for about 4 or 5 days and maybe throw off any momentum that I had going. And there's no sense in busting your body up and missing 4 days.
There's none. I mean, that right now, when days for you are a commodity, you don't need to. And I think you asked this question in February, and I put the kibosh on it then too.
Yes, you did. Because you said you preface it with, "Are you going to go out and just kind of have fun and jog it?"
No.
And I said, "No, I can't do that once the lights."
Exactly. It's not in your DNA.
The lights turn on. It's like, it's a race, so it's probably better just to avoid the race. And in that case, number 4, it says, make the race a research project.
What does that have to do with mental toughness?
Well, I guess it's something to do with being prepared, maybe. How prepared.
Yeah, I don't think that has anything to do with mental toughness. I think it's just being thorough. Yeah, it doesn't take a mentally tough person to do their. I mean, if you're a triathlete, you sign up for an Ironman, you probably are going to log, 30 to 60 hours annually just staring at the race's website, looking at course maps and looking at map my rides and checking elevation and checking the current and what's the weather, and you're going to spend all the time in the world, and that has absolutely zero to do with mental toughness.
Yeah, and I think it's more about, like, they think, it's just being prepared and to be confident. It's like for being prepared to go in a test, kind of know as much as you can about it, which I guess makes sense on one level. But There's
Yeah, but I
really
mean,
no
you can say the
way.
same thing about people who are overly nervous and anxious. That they do, like they over research races, and they read every blog out there and every race report known to man, and they turn it into something that it's not. That's not mental toughness. That's just freaking out.
Yeah. My first year when I was training for Wisconsin, this is very well documented that I watched probably 800 videos on the swim start.
Oh gosh, man.
And guess what happened once I got there? It was nothing like I thought it was going to be. I mean, and even last year we went out into the water and tried to purposely pick sighting lines and all kinds of pre-race research, and none of it mattered because you couldn't see that far anyway. So, yeah, it was no sense in getting too deep into what could possibly go wrong.
Exactly.
Number 5, it says perform pre-race simulations. And, that's, of course, I mean, I looked at that one for a second because they were talking about doing group swims in the pool and get used to contact and simulating the conditions. And I know you're big on that one.
I am big on that one, yeah.
And a lot of times you talk about how it happens a lot in the run and in the bike, but rarely happens in the swim, and people freak out the most in the swim, and they never create the swim conditions in their training, so that goes afoul usually.
Yep. Yeah, and that's, again, it just goes back to their previous one, but it's more just kind of like doing your due diligence when it comes to being prepared, which again has nothing to do with mental toughness. I just think mental toughness is more what you do when those plans go awry versus what you're planning on from your laptop or pre-riding and doing a recon for a race course. It's those things. I would put knowing how to change a flat tire fast, I would put that under mental toughness versus any of the other two they listed, because it's practicing staying calm in the event of adversity when you're super stressed and minutes and seconds matter. That's preparation for mental toughness. In order to execute it under the pressure, under the knife, versus plotting out, everything else like they listed the last two, which are not really real life scenarios.
Right. Number 6, I don't think we can really disagree with this. It says focus on what can be controlled. I guess that's that could fit right in there, that tire change.
Yeah, I mean, it does. I mean, it's like it goes into you can and again back to I think Shane Livingston's kind of question in the context of that thread on our closed group was like, you can only control certain things, and so worrying about things out of your control, it just adds to additional stress that you don't need. And I think that kind of goes to everything. It goes with training and racing. Is the overcomplication of something that's actually supposed to be very simple and fun, but we analyze it. It's paralysis by analysis, or whatever, vice versa, analysis by paralysis, however you want to put it. And we do that so often when it comes to racing because there are so many different scenarios and different variables and all kinds of things that we just over, and and a lot of times we forget I bet the average, to go back to the tire changing, I bet the average triathlete spends probably 20 to 30 hours a year looking at the newest aero gear that may or may not, and this and that, and who's buying this, and probably less than 20 minutes the whole year practicing or even knowing how to change a flat tire. I mean, I literally know triathletes who are actually quite fast that if they flatted in a race would have to DNF because they literally have no idea how to change a tire. But they could tell you everything there is to know about the aero helmet they have on, how many watts per kilogram it's going to save them, or the wetsuit they bought. It's those little details that are more in line with mental toughness.
Yep. I totally get that one. Number 7, don't race unprepared.
Yeah, I think we just covered it.
Yeah, I think so too. I go. I go out to the lab a lot and ride my bike, and it's so funny because I'll go out there, and you've seen this many times, I'm sure. When it is so windy out there because of the open field, and we talked about this before. But when I get out there, I kind of like, oh man, it's just so windy, and immediately I have to shift my head around and say, all right, that's a good thing. And because if you can get used to riding in that kind of wind, it's only going to be a bonus. But how many people have you seen come out there, ride one lap, and just peel off and go back into the greenway?
I mean, they're like, why did I even think this was a good idea? I am out of here.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, yes, take your bike and get out of here. But no, I mean, and I think they should, I think you could probably, rephrase that as like, prepare to the best of your abilities. And again, it goes back to, what Shane, I think, posted. It was like, I always like to do this for, the athletes that I coach. If I feel like they need it and they're having any kind of apprehension, is that like if they're doing like a late season Ironman and everybody starts to question themselves, like, oh, well, I really wanted to do this time, or all like we talked about in a previous podcast, like, your hopes and dreams in January mean jack crap in June. because everything's changed. And what I like to do is go back through their Training Peaks account and tally up their hours on the bike and the run and their distance on the swim, and be like, you put in this amount of work over the course of this many months for this day, and you can't tell me you're not ready. Whether you wanted to do more or you wanted to do less, this is what we're working with, so let's go make something out of it. And usually that kind of helps put it in perspective, because it's a real easy find in Training Peaks just to go to your annual report, and you're like, man, that's a lot of time I spent just for today. Whether it's a 70-point Olympic or a 70.3 or a half Ironman, you're like, God, I've spent this many hours and this many miles and this much yardage training for this, and it all comes down to, so whether I wanted to average this much a week or this much a week hours-wise, this is what I did, and it's the best I could do, so that's what I got, and let's see what happens. And that's the kind of mentality you have to take from a realizing and recognizing that you did the best you could to prepare, given the fact that life is going to throw a lot of things at you, and you may or may not be able to withstand it, and that's okay. 2 years ago, or 2.5 when I moved to Kansas City, I was planning on doing Ironman Chattanooga that year. I moved to Kansas City on July 3rd. Got moved in, travel from Nashville, got moved into KC, started my job the next day, worked 3 or 4 days, and then drove straight to Muncie. Had one day, raced really, really well. I think I ended up with like a 4:34 or 4:35 that day, and then drove right home and got shingles. and I was out for a month, and then it was like, man, life is just too much. I would end up hating triathlon if I really focused on Chattanooga, and so I didn't. And then I ended up getting reinvigorated. So I skipped Chattanooga altogether, as you know. And then the next month I started training for probably my most consistent year yet in Wisconsin, even with adverse stuff with us getting pregnant and having Hayden and him going to the NICU, all in the weeks leading up to Wisconsin. It was that previous year that kind of taught me what I can withstand and how I can overcome and what I can't. And it just to be realistic and okay with whatever results those yield.
Mm-hmm. Number 8, when racing, think through the tough patches. I'll admit I had to look at that one to see what the heck they were talking about, but it was basically they were kind of like suggesting affirmations or things like that when stuff starts going bad. So
okay, yeah, I'm a fan of that. Having a mantra or remembering that all things do pass. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think you're gonna when you feel great, don't get used to it, because that means you're about to feel terrible, and then when you feel terrible, don't get used to it because you're about to feel great. Or okay, you know, and so it's all relative, and it's all going to change. Like don't get attached to the feeling, and it is an incredibly long day. It is a race, but it's ultimately just a really, really long day. And I mean, a lot of times, I find this in work too. Like my morning starts out just god awful, and then by lunch, I'm like, man, that day's really turned around. And it's like without even thinking about it, it doesn't. One mistake or one stressor or whatever, or one mess up, it doesn't have to be the end. It's like, don't be a prisoner of the moment, and be this. I'm going to PR or I'm going to fail. Mm-hmm. It's never really that black and white, even though we try to make it that way. It really just comes through. I just have to work with it and work through it. And kind of like you said in the beginning of the cast, it's like, go into it, acknowledge that you're probably actually scared or anxious, sit with it, recognize it, and then move on. It's the avoiding it and pretending like it's not there that's a reason that it sticks around with you and becomes more of a hindrance than it does something you can actually get over through the course of the race.
Yeah, and this is like one of my big things. I've always talked about this, but like thinking through pain or moving pain around and just kind of staying in that moment and going deep into it and whatever. And what I've learned through triathlon is I grew up playing a lot of sports, and what I've learned is that I was just a wimp, man, a lot of times. I always thought I was injured, but it was just sort of something going on. It wasn't a real injury. And I know that happens a lot, but most of us, I think, through all the training that we do, and I think that's a great idea that you give people sort of a summary of everything they've been through, because that is quite amazing that you put all that effort into this 1 day or 2 days or whatever. And we forget how much we've been through and how many times we've actually had those same aches and pains through training that we forget about them, and all of a sudden they're amplified in a race and you might think it's an injury, or you might, and of course I'm not suggesting that you run through like real injuries or something like that, but so many aches and pains are something that just are temporary, and if you can figure out how to dive into it like we were talking about, I think you can make them move around and you can kind of like ease up, or like a pain is also a indicator that maybe you're putting too much lean into something, or it's just trying to figure out a way to take some pressure off that, and maybe get your form back. So that's a good time to really start thinking about form when you hurt. I mean, that's the way I always look at it, and and taking a little bit of pounding off and getting your balance back in stride and things like that. So all right, number 9, buddy. Are you ready for the big finale?
I am.
Number 9, conduct a thorough post-race analysis. I'm big on that.
Yeah. I think there is a huge difference between Joe Schmo's Ironman Louisville race report and an actual analysis. I honestly don't really need to hear or care about your play-by-play, because it's literally all the same.
That
what I
hurts
do
my
care
feelings a little bit, buddy.
Well, I just don't. But what I do
all right, no
care
more
about,
race reports from me then.
But what I do like, and you do this a lot, is about what people think. And the things that aren't out of the that are out of the ordinary, like what was I thinking when this happened, or what the circumstances that are the anomalies that aren't just like your regular. I checked into the expo at 2:39, and then I picked up my bib number 317, and I walked over. I'm like, I don't really care about that. We all do the same thing. It's like the stuff that you do that other people may not have heard of, or just a general overall objective analysis of what you did right and what you did wrong,
right?
And not the other ones that a lot of people do. It's just like, I like stuff where I can learn. Like, I want to learn something when I read a race analysis, and a lot of times, and then sign it, I just didn't do enough to get this time, instead of like, and what most people say, just didn't have my day. But no, analysis is a great word versus an actual. There's a big difference in analysis and race report. So keep up with your analysis, but the general race reports that some people give are just kind of boring.
Yeah, I agree, and I kind of started changing my tune on those a little bit. I started doing stuff like things I learned at Ironman Wisconsin, or 10 things I did wrong at Ironman Chattanooga. Because the one thing with me in this, I will swear on this until my grave, is that the thing about starting a blog about triathlon and writing about it and being forced to create. And it's like the podcast, we're forced to create new topics and think about stuff in detail and continue to do it. It just reinforces it in your mind, So every time I write about stuff like that, it reminds me, if nothing else, and it sinks in a little bit deeper, and it's something I can reach in and grab when I need it, maybe, because it doesn't always stay in the top of your forefront of your brain. But
exactly,
halfway through a race, you can be like, oh, at one time I remember this happened, and this is what I did.
Yep, exactly, and I think that's a great. You hit it on the head. I was like, I want self-objective reflection. I don't want over everything. I don't want just a play-by-play for people to read, because you want people to know you're an Ironman. We already know, but it's that, like, what did I do right? What did I do wrong? And how can I do better next time? Like, I think that's what everybody wants to read and wants to see. But I think if you would ask, some people, it's like, I spent more time writing this race report than I have any intentions on actually applying it and changing my behavior and learning what I can do differently to get better next time. Mm-hmm. Because that's the hard part, is going back and digging through, the tough stuff to learn on how you can get better and what you did wrong or what you did right. Yeah,
and I think that is really a good place to wrap that up, because learning those types of things through writing and reflecting and whatever thorough post-game reports are huge, in the sense that you can. It's all a learning process, and the more you learn about things that have gone wrong, the less they scare you, and the more ways you have to solve the problem when it comes up. So if you go into a race knowing that you have answers, that's a huge advantage, and that's a huge way to get mental toughness. And I feel like the one that I haven't figured out yet is the extreme heat. I still haven't quite solved that puzzle. Usually, if I have aches and pains and all kinds of nagging, nuances in my body throughout the race, I can power through those and mentally figure it out. But the super hot day that comes out of nowhere, that you think you can beat, it's one of the toughest for me, and I'm still digging in on that one.
Hey, there's still time.
And we have a podcast about training in heat, so I might have to go listen to that again.
Yeah, take a listen, man.
I think I will. All right. Anything else? How you feeling about being home?
Man, it's slowly sinking in. It's awesome. I had a big dinner with my family last night. They hadn't seen us in a year, and so it was really, really good. It's good to be back. Already seen quite a few people, and went for 2 runs already, and barely recognized the city that I left. So it's be a good way to run around town and reacclimate to the area. And I did see like an annoyingly I saw an East Nashvilleian over here on the Belmont side today. I was doing my run at probably 6:30 this morning. Mm-hmm. It was a beautiful morning. It was nice and cool. Yeah. And there's this dude sitting in his hammock by the sidewalk at 6:30, sipping his espresso on his Mac.
I gotta love a guy who gets an early start.
Golly, dude! Like, what are you? Yeah. Anyway, but yeah, it's good to be back, and I do want to give a couple shout-outs real quick before I get off. We just had some family guests come over, so I'm going to go downstairs. But I want to give a huge shout out to Danny Sturdivant, who got first in his age group and top 10 overall at an Olympic over this last weekend. He beat one of his nemesis, which is always a good feeling. Yeah, beating somebody you've never beaten before is always a good feeling. I also want to give a very big shout out to Matthew Dickinson, who fought through some really, really horrible back seizures and just seizing up on his body to actually finish his half marathon. And that's mental toughness in practice. Mm-hmm. Is finishing it. So I got to give him major props for that. And then good luck to Lizzie Miller competing this upcoming weekend. And I think that's all on the roster competing this weekend, or just did. And we'll have a ton more. The weeks just get busier and the shout-outs become louder.
Yes, they do.
That's all I got today.
I'm hearing rumors we might do a Facebook Live.
From the above ground pool. Yeah. I mean, who doesn't want to see us with our shirts off? Let's be honest.
Gosh. Give me a couple weeks, man. Maybe let's do it right after Chattanooga.
Okay. Well, you don't want to. Yeah, that sounds good. That sounds good to me.
And plus,
Give
I
you
got to
some
put
time.
water in the pool still. I got to
Oh,
clean
yeah.
it. Maybe
we
you can help me
work on
clean
that,
it.
too.
Maybe we can do
I can do that. I can put in my time.
Oh, good, man. I need some help with that. There's
I
a
know you
bunch
do.
of leaves and who knows
Yeah,
what.
Jeff Stokes, if you're listening, you failed. Um,
We're going to the lake on Friday. Is that still on?
yeah, man, I need to borrow some swim trunks, so I didn't bring any.
What?
Yeah, man. I don't know if we're like that close or not, but I forgot. They're back in Kansas. I got to go back to Kansas on Sunday and get the rest of our stuff in the U-Haul, but I forgot my jammies.
You're not going to swim. Anyway, it's wetsuit legal.
Yeah, my wetsuit's in Kansas too, so
Oh.
I don't know. I'll figure some. I'll at least come down and stand on the sand and peer out to the sunset.
Yeah, that'll be good. And maybe we can record a short podcast for that day.
Perfect.
I'll bring my laptop and we'll just like ace it.
Yeah, man. Let's do it.
You know, just the vibe. I don't know if it'll be anything.
That sounds good, dude.
9 things we learned from the lake.
That's it. 9 things.
Okay.
Soon. All right, man. It was good to talk to you. Remember to like our Crushing Iron Facebook page. Please keep the reviews coming on iTunes. And if you want to be a part of the conversation, join our Crushing Iron closed Facebook group.
Yeah, it's right out there. Just search Crushing Iron Group. That's the closed Facebook group. And
Yep.
we'll get you in there.
Join the conversation.
All right, well, thanks for joining us today.
And we will talk to you later.
Okay, have a great night.
You too, man. See you. Bye.